Joining me now on the set, wow, Charles Payne, host of Making Money, Taylor Riggs, co-host of the Big Money Show, all right here on Fabulous Fox Business, and if that weren't enough, financial journalist and author John Carney. Wow, no such assembly has ever been together since Thomas Jefferson dined alone. I don't know. I have to work on that. John F. Kennedy allegedly said that. Charles, thank you for coming. Everybody, thank you for coming. I want to start with you. Affordability, waitresses, firefighters, all of those kinds of middle American who have suffered, okay, they suffered enormously under Biden. Mr. Trump says they're suffering less now. I think he has the numbers to back that up. But my question to you is, with the Feds cutting interest rates by a little bit and their long-term outlook of very, very sluggish growth, what does this do to affordability? What does this do to a waitress? What does this do to a cop? What does this do to a firefighter? What does this do to a teacher?
Well, a lot has been made of, they've been cutting rates, and the normal reaction of the bond yields, long-end bond yields, 10, 30-year, aren't coming down, hence mortgage rates aren't coming down. But mortgages are down a lot from a year ago. They're down significantly, and I think if they keep at it, I think people underestimate how aggressive they were. And theoretically, you could argue that the policy is still restrictive, right? And what is a restrictive policy? It's designed to put a clamp on the economy. And that's what it's done, but it doesn't do it. It doesn't work for rich folks who can just take money and put it in money markets or keep it in assets. Assets still did well under this.
Why would the Fed want to put a clamp on the economy? They're the nation's central bank.
They're
supposed to help us, Charles.
I know, but you know what? If they see a salary go up more than 4%, they see jobs go up too much, they become afraid. Like, that's a negative thing. The Fed has never been designed for Main Street, and that's the problem here. The Fed goes to war with Main Street. They crush Main Street. Then they start looking for signals from rich folks before they get it there. Listen, rich folks aren't going to run out of money anytime soon. So the retail sales numbers are going to look pretty good. Some of these other aggregate numbers are going to look good. And the Fed's going to say, well, we've got to stay restrictive. We've got to be careful. You've got to break this economy down. The top 20% are doing extraordinarily well, but they've won. They've beaten the middle class. They've beaten small businesses. Look at ADP this week. All those job losses on small businesses. Right. They won. You won, Jay Powell. You crushed the economy, this one part of it. The other part you're not going to crush. And if you're waiting for them to wave the white flag, I don't know what's going to happen to the rest of the nation.
No. Good points. Okay. Taylor, I'm going to come to you in a second on the market stuff. But I want to go to John Carney. Am I wrong? I mean, look, conventionally, so it really plays into exactly what Charles is saying. I did it different. Conventionally, the construct is productivity times rise in the labor force, okay? And when you do that, and you look at the trend lines, productivity trends are just slightly above 2%. Labor force growth is 1.3, 1.4%. Right there, you have above 3% growth, but the Fed will never acknowledge that. When you start layering on some of these wonderful things from American, we're open for business, as Mr. Trump says, AI, layer on the fact that all prices are down 25%, that affects the entire economy, will eventually show up in the CPI. That boosts real GDP. In other words, there's growth. The Fed just doesn't want to acknowledge growth because they keep restraining it with their policy. Am I wrong here? I thought my analysis is conventional.
Right, you're absolutely right.
Not even the supply side tax cut. If you throw that in, who knows? You could have 5% growth.
The Fed upgraded its growth projection for next year by a lot, but it's still too little. I think they're at 2.4% for next year. 2.3. That is too low of a growth
And then
projection.
it goes down, it's like 1 year of happiness for these guys. And then it goes down to 2 and 1.9. And then here, I love this one. They throw the dates out. It just says longer run, 1.8.
Well, and I'll tell you what's so scary about that. And Charles Payne got this exactly right. That's the Fed projecting that they are going to crush growth down to 1.8. When they project 2% for inflation in the future, they're projecting that's what their policy will do. When they project 1.8% for the future for growth, they're projecting that's what their policy will do. That's wrong. The very first question Donald Trump should ask anybody coming in to be Fed chairman is, do you agree that we can only grow 1%, or will you change that policy and let the economy grow much faster, because we can grow much faster?
Because it is. I mean, really, these numbers imply a failure. I mean,
It
the
is.
nation's central bank should promote the nation. Now, Taylor, on the other side of the coin, markets love today's numbers.
Yes.
And markets are booming, and they're hitting records or near record highs. 600 points on the Dow, a good day for the S&P. Bonds did better. Bond rates went down. That's a good thing. So, you know, reading this, there's something good going on here, regardless of the machinations of the Fed.
There is. So 2 points for you. One, I was just listening to Jeffrey Gundlach, who's sort of like the bond king
Yes.
on Wall Street right now, when he had a good point. Hate to break it to you, it doesn't matter who the Fed chair is. The 2-year yield is the Fed chair. The 2-year yield at a 3.55 finally matches the Fed funds rate. For the last 2 years, they've been jawboning the market. The Fed finally caved and matched the 2-year yield. The 2-year yield was waving that flag and saying, hello, look at me, I'm telling you what's needed to be done. The Fed finally caught up and did it. On the equity market, there's some good news. More people, young kids, Gen Z, they're more invested in the stock market than ever before.
Yes.
It's not just your generation, right?
It's a good thing.
Yes, totally. So
A lot of
when
millionaires.
equity market,
A lot of millionaires created with 401 accounts.
Absolutely.
Really passive investing. Just hold the
Totally.
indexes.
Buy and hold.
And it reports from Vanguard and others this past week.
Fidelity was one that said
Fidelity.
a record over 3% of their account holders now are a million.
So that's good. We
Thanks
like
to a
that.
booming stock market. One more quick
What did
point.
Jeremy Siegel say? He was on Liz Clayman. Did you hear anything?
Yeah, he was saying maybe Kevin Warsh for Fed chair. We'll see.
Do you want me
Quick
to
final
break,
point.
Do you want me to break confidence?
No,
Happy to break
nope,
confidence.
nope.
A small
I do.
confidence.
The Russell 2000,
Thank you.
quickly, the Russell 2000 is at a record. Why do we care about that? Those
that's a
are
small
cap, domestic-focused companies
God,
that
she's
are
so smart.
so tied to the U.S.
Who knows
GDP.
this stuff? This is unbelievable.
Not the multinationals, not Microsoft who gets revenue from Europe. No, American-based companies. So that's what I like.
I will say, well done, by the way.
Okay, thanks.
Very, very
We can all
well
go
done.
home now.
Yeah.
I did like that story in the Journal. Was it yesterday or the day before? All these 401k, passive investing, which, as you know, is the Kudlow point of view, buy and hold. And they're making a lot of money. They're over a lot of millionaires being created. Hundreds of thousands of millionaires have been created. That's a very good thing. It speaks well for the U.S. Charles, Kevin Warsh is scheduled to meet with the president this afternoon. I don't know that he will. I don't know that the meeting will come off. I can just tell you he is scheduled to meet. I think that we had the other Kevin on, Kevin Hassett, last night. In fact, do we have the tape? We have tape from Kevin Hassett last night. I'll play some tape. Yeah, here's some tape on my interview with Kevin Hassett last night. Take a listen, please.
So I think that the Fed needs to go back to being a nonpartisan organization that focuses on bank regulation and on monetary policy and tries to stay out of politics. Another thing that I saw when I was studying this ahead of time was that the Fed almost never, ever, ever moves interest rates right before a presidential election because they don't want to look like they're playing political favorites. But what happened in the last election? We got a big rate cut right ahead of the election.
What do you think of that?
No, the Fed is definitely political, and that revolving door, Layla Brainerd,
Yeah.
Janet Yellen. I mean, they're all moving back and forth from the Biden administration to the Fed, and it was really clear if Harris had won, forget about it. That whoever the Fed chair was going to be extraordinarily political. They would have had a whole new mandate with social justice and things like that. Having said that, it's a tough call for President Trump because in his first term, a lot of people were suggested to him for a lot of important jobs, and it turned out that they really did not have his best interests at heart per se, in a lot of different areas.
That's how I got in there. he finally found someone that agreed with him. It's a true story.
Yeah, because people say
it's what I was doing in there.
You have two things. You had
I actually went out there and I actually went out there on the north lawn in front of the microphone and defended his policies, which was something new in the beginning of his second term. I'm sorry.
Because no, you have traditional Republicans who are not Trump Republicans.
Right.
And they had his ear because, listen, he was in D.C. He didn't know who else to listen to. So I'm worried. I want to make sure that he gets the person that he wants in the sense that he wants someone that, and Besson has said it, he's articulated it, making sure that the Federal Reserve is working for Main Street.
Yep.
And
Smart.
so it's a tough. Also,
But they're
they
smart.
have to be strong, though.
They're both smart.
I'm a little. That's enough. They have to be very, very strong.
What's your reservation?
Last Monday, Jay Powell gave a speech and he talked about George Shultz. It was, last Monday. But in that speech, there were two lines that stood out to me. One, I think he took a shot at Trump about, civility or whatever. The other one is about allowing all these Fed folks to go out there and speak every single day.
Right.
And I think he's lost control.
Right.
And so whoever the Fed chairs has got to be able to say, hey, we had 3 dissents today, the most since 2019. It's fine that we have these discussions, but the fewer dissents, the more impactful Fed policy will be. And they could also jawbone markets up or down without even having to do emergency things. So whoever gets that job has to be able to really have a certain amount of gravitas and leadership ability as well.
John, what do you want to see now going ahead? So we've had all this brouhaha. Markets are in a good mood. We're all in a good mood. It's a wonderful day to be alive. The Fed cut rates, and they finally caught up with what the market wants, as Taylor Riggs has suggested. From here, and again, from the standpoint of growth, what should the Fed do?
So a couple things. One, just one more really good point. The Fed lowered the inflation expectation for next year. They're finally admitting that tariffs aren't inflationary. That's really important. But what I would like to see is, one, Jay Powell say, and he declined again today irresponsibly to say he will step down from his governor's seat when his chairmanship is up. He needs to make that clear. And then what I would like to see the Fed say is that they've been wrong, that the economy can grow without a lot of inflation faster than 1.8. Look, I don't think they're going to get to the Kudlow 3 or 4 anytime that soon. It's going to take a little while.
But the economy will get there.
The economy is
even
going to
if
prove
the
them wrong.
Fed doesn't.
Right, but
I mean, I wasn't kidding. Trump is a better forecaster than their 500 economists.
the thing that worries everybody when they see that 1.8% number is that if the growth starts going faster, that the Fed will try to slam on the brakes because they assume you cannot safely grow faster than that.
We don't know that they wouldn't do that.
That's right, and that's the
an
big
important
danger.
point. That's an important point. What do you think about that? The stock market has had such a run here. Okay,
Yes.
a fabulous run. And that's a good omen for next year. Corporate profits are strong, the mother's milk of stocks and all that. And they're probably starting to use the tax cuts and so forth and so on. But if people are worried that the Fed will stomp on it, as per Charles is concerned, that's like a cloud that overhangs everything. You don't want you want a Fed chairman who's a leader.
Yes.
It would seem to me, not a Scrooge.
Yes, a leader, but also a leader who's okay not being in the limelight. And look, I come from the big establishment where I'm a big fan of the Fed, but even I have come to recognize it is better when the Federal Reserve takes a back seat and lets the economy and real jobs step up, be front and center, and guide the economy. They're there to tweak things if it gets really out of hand, but the heavy hand they've had on this market, which, by the way, they're starting QE again in 2 days, $40 billion a month in T-bills on the front end. The more they're in the market, the less I like that. I want them out so that the real economy can just get out of the way and let America prosper.
Right. We don't want a central planning agency.
Well, no more standing up during the press conference. Jerome Powell invented the standing press conference where he looks like the U.S. president. Janet Yellen did it sitting down. Ben Bernanke did it sitting down.
I didn't know that.
He should sit down. The next Fed, this is the second question Trump should ask. Will you stop the standing press conference? Sit down. And you know what? You don't even have to do it every meeting. No more standing up.
I'll give you my Oliver Cromwell. In the name of God, go. I mean, that's really, I think, Charles, on interest rates, I'm going to give you the last word on all this. On the interest rates story, what happens here? Do the rates come down, the mortgage rates, the car loan rates, insurance rates, things that are plaguing working folks in the middle class or lower classes trying to climb the ladder of success? What has to happen?
I think they will. I think it will. Again, a lot of folks are saying, well, it didn't happen this time. But again, if you looked at how aggressively, the 25 basis points, 50, I think 4 or 5, 75 basis point hikes in a row. I mean, this was one of the most extraordinary stretches of rate hikes in history. Maybe the most extraordinary. So we're just chipping away at that, you know. And I know there's other issues like debt, deficit spending, demographics, that also are sort of weighing in on this. But I think the strategy with Bessent using at the Treasury with these T-bills, I think is really pretty smart. I think that also will alleviate some pressure on the yield for long. So we'll see the 10 and 30 start to come down. And I think if the 10 breaks 4, you'll get a sort of a mini hysteria kind of thing. Remember, Bessent put that chart the other day showing how bonds were down every single year while Biden was in office, and now they're up again. And those are essential investments. Those are like the key investments that large institutions and pensions, they want to buy them. They really do. And if you give them an excuse to, they will.
I can't leave without asking you. Stock market call, Charles Payne, stock market call.
I'm bullish, man.
There you
I'm
go.
real
There you
bullish.
go.
Yeah, real
There you
bullish.
go.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what?
7,500 by the end of next year
You know
on the
what?
S&P.
We've got. It's so funny because Powell didn't want to give any credit to the big beautiful bill because they said, "Well, how'd you get to 2.3?" And oh, by the way, he said, "Well, 2/10 of that is just from the shutdown, so essentially that was pushed out from this year to next, which makes the number even weaker." But he wouldn't. He said, "Consumers, AI." And everybody's like, big, beautiful bill, big, beautiful bill.
Wouldn't do it.
He's like,
He wouldn't do it. Absolutely.
he couldn't get it out.
That big, beautiful bill is going to be a big help. Listen, America's open for business. I love it when Trump says that. He's got all this money flowing in from around the world. I don't know what the right number is. If it's half of what he says, it's still fabulous.
The funniest headline last week is from Bloomberg. Trump is wrong. It's not 21 trillion. It's 7 trillion. I'm like, huh? 7 trillion?
That's a lot of money.
I'll take it.
We'll leave it on that. America, it's a great country or what? Anyway, you're all great. John Carney, thank you. Charles Payne, Taylor Riggs. You can catch